All right, everybody. Hello, I'm Corey Hildebrand, Aquatics, or AOAP current president. And with me today, we have Donita, several of our board members, Donita, Gwen, Deb, and Courtney. And I want to thank you guys all for taking the time to join us, but we definitely are trying to offer these roundtables quarterly, and we thought this would be a great one to discuss because it's something that obviously all of us are dealing with right now, with lots of challenges with recruiting, challenges with keeping our staff engaged, and we were just having a conversation, keeping them showing up to work actually and performing their duties. And we have a couple people that were questioning whether or not they're even going to have staff show up this afternoon that are on this. So hopefully they'll be able to stay with us the whole time. But if you are not an AOAP member, I definitely want to take the time to encourage you to join. AOAP is obviously a national organization to help promote aquatics and mentor and engage aquatics professionals throughout the country. We also have very, very low membership rate of $40 for a calendar year. So definitely one of the better deals out there for what you get for your money. But with that, we'll go ahead and get going. I definitely want to keep this conversational today. So if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. We'll do our best to call on you. If we're not seeing you, go ahead and unmute yourself and please jump in. Definitely want to have other people share too their thoughts and experiences on some of the things that we're going to talk about. But let's go ahead and get going. We're going to start out with talking about recruiting. Staffing shortages obviously have been well documented across the country. With the current competitive job market in several areas, let's discuss some ways to recruit and retain new staff. So with that, I'll get started. Deb, how do you use current team members to assist in the recruiting process?
I'm from a very small community of about 14,000 people, and my year-round natatorium pool sets in the high school building here, and our office is in the high school as well. So it's a small town, good or bad, where everyone knows everyone and everyone's business. And we just have had a pretty strong tradition of siblings coming up, or families that, are cousins, and, see what's going on and have, want to come to work with us. And so it's really one of those good, bad. If you get a whole group of bad kids, it's hard to get rid of them all at one time. But I've been really blessed and been able to have, some great kids come up through former lifeguards, or I've done it long enough now that I'm having children of my first lifeguards starting to come into the workplace. But it's been a good thing. Also, I sort of put it to them, if you don't want to work with someone you're complaining about, then bring somebody good to us. And so that's kind of worked for us.
Absolutely. And have you had any luck working with your PE classes? I know you mentioned that you're within a school district setting. Have you used that to your advantage?
Yes, we have. We obviously watch the students in our PE classes, our PE swimming classes, and kind of, I hate to use the word target or stalk, but I've been known to go out on the pool deck and say, hey, what are your plans for summer? Or I'd really like to have you, come on our team. Also, a unique kind of thing that we do is second semester, we work with the curriculum coordinator here at the high school and do a 4 credit, it's a PE credit, and it's lifeguard training. The flip side of that is I don't have a teaching degree. So I basically teach the class as a Red Cross instructor, and the PE instructor then sits in the room and just verifies that, yes, they're learning, that kind of thing. So I don't get any extra for it. My department doesn't get any extra resources or financial resources from it, but I usually pick up anywhere from 3 to 5 guards, and you've had them all semester. With our flex plan, that's at least twice a week, all semester long. So they get to know who you are, you get to know who they are. And, if you've ever done anything like that, it's a long class. So you do a lot of repeating of skills. So that's been a really great kind of path for us to take.
Great, thank you. So Gwen, I know wages have continued to increase, especially you're out here in California with me, and we find ourselves competing against fast food restaurants and other entities for staff. So how does your agency compete for staff against workplaces that require minimum training and investments before they can be able to work?
Yeah, that's a great question. This summer, actually, after we had all of our staff hired, our competitor in the city, a casino, offered a $500 signing bonus for anybody that would come over and work for them, as well as higher wages. So obviously, being a municipality, we can't compete with that. But what we did do, and it was successful, is we taught a lot of lifeguard training classes. We teach classes beginning pretty soon, September, all the way through, right before tryouts in April. And then what we've been doing the past couple of years has been really successful is we've had pre-summer hiring workshops where we, last couple of years has been on Zoom, but we have a meeting with the parents and potential kids that might want to work for us. And we just go over all the information, like what it's going to look like to work for us, what certifications they're going to need, what to expect from the job, kind of question and answer with our current aquatic staff, so they kind of get an idea of what we have and what we're all about. And then right before tryouts, because we were finding a lot of people would come to class, they then wouldn't come to tryouts. So we figured out that people were pretty nervous about coming to tryouts for whatever reason. And so we have a tryout clinic right before our tryouts, so they can come, get in the water, practice with our staff, and practice any skills they're not certain about, and kind of figure out what tryouts are going to be like. And that's really helped our attendance at tryouts as well. And then lastly, kind of like what Deb was saying, we just built a culture of fun and seriousness about their jobs, but also we get a lot of employees that recruit their friends. So if they're good employees, they recruit their friends, their siblings, those kinds of things. And that's been really helpful for us as well.
Great. And outside of those responses, Danita, are there any tools that you use to continue to draw in staff?
This year we did some incentives of current staff to try and recruit their friends. So those that recruited the most, we gave a really nice sports bag to, so that they could take their stuff back and forth to work. We also have a junior lifeguard camp that we do every summer. So we put the kids through camp, they kind of know what to expect, get a little taste of it. And depending on how old they are, because camp is 11 to 14-year-olds, they can come multiple times, or they can move in and become WSI aides for us, which is the same age group. And that way they are out there, they're working right alongside of our staff. It continues to grow kind of that family and those relationships. And that's really helped us to draw in. Plus we have 2 different competitive swim teams that utilize our facilities. So we're able to recruit from them as well. So.
Great, thank you. All right, Courtney. So many of us have lost large amounts of staff during the pandemic. I know my aquatic staff went down from about 150 part-time staff to about 38 over the course of that year. How were you able to recover and recover for the summer season?
With Courtney, there's 2
Oh,
Courtneys.
sorry, Courtney Clay.
Sorry,
You're okay.
other Courtney.
This is my life.
Maybe you have good answers too, Courtney. Maybe we both share. We did do an incentive program, like Danita said, with our current staff, but we also tried to partner, like if they recruited a friend and their friend lasted the whole season and they lasted the whole season, they both got $50 at the end of the season. So it was a mix of Deb and Danita's things, I think, where we created a way to get friends to bring in their friends, and then have those applicants stick around to keep to get the bonus. So if I brought in 3 friends, there's a chance I could get $150. And that this wasn't approved through HR. This was my own money that I paid. So I
Wow.
actually only ended up having to pay one friend group. So something that next year we are going to actually have go through HR and is already approved for next year, so that we doesn't have to come out of my pocket. But for this year, that was our strategy, and it did help. We still had less staff. We had 306 instead of 360, but still better than last year.
Well, so outside of using your own money to provide bonuses to your team, does your organization pay to train, or are there any other rewards to encourage applicants?
That's part of the incentive program that's coming up this year, that we will be
Okay.
adding a pay to train, partly because, like Gwen said, the organization's kind of taking our lifeguards away. We had a couple that got hired with us and then didn't get the pool that they wanted to be at, but they were still close by, and then they got a job at Chipotle or Crumble Cookie, and they just left. So we did have kids kind of leave. So we are adding a pay to train incentive where they will get reimbursed once they're hired with us and work. Their first paycheck will have the reimbursement on it.
All right. And of those, just a show of hands with the group, how many use pay to train as a way to incentivize people to apply for their facilities? So there's a few. I highly recommend that. That's something that all the organizations that I have worked for has done that. And we have not had a whole lot of issues of getting people to apply, just because they realize that they're getting paid. And it also is kind of an extended interview process too. One organization that I work through, and I'm reading that right now, we train with a free, I'm trying to see what that just said, sorry. We train for free with a signed agreement to work. And that's one of the things that we did at my former organization. And then the benefit to that is that if they didn't work out, they weren't necessarily really hired for the season. So we were able to release. So it was an easier process than the current organization that I work for. With that pay to train element too, have you guys had success with retaining staff, or are you seeing that they come and they train 1 year, they work 1 summer season, and then they take off? Any comments on that?
Hi, this is Crystal in Christiansburg, Virginia. We've been doing this free training for a number of years, and it has been beneficial. Most of them will stick around and stay. We kind of just hold hostage their lifeguard certification. But recently we haven't had people actually coming to actually get trained. So we're really struggling.
Okay.
Just no applicant.
This was the first year that normally in years past, the student came to us, paid for lifeguard training, and depending on their skill level and how their attitude and everything was during class was whether they were hired or not. Well, this year, with all that's going on, we had to do things a little differently. So we charged $50 to the students that were going to be potentially our employees. And it started out really well at the beginning, and that was about a week into the job. And, it just was a nightmare, because you can't really hold their certificate hostage, and especially if it's a Red Cross, because they can go on and print the digital, or they're send a digital. So it really, really doesn't help to kind of have that. But it was a huge, on my budget revenue, it was a huge, hit to it. But I don't see ever going back to being able to, or in the near future, to charge a full price. I'd love to hear how people kind of hold it over their head as a promise. You had said something about do they sign a contract, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think, Deb, I think that's one of the challenges that we all have with that, is that how do we set a minimum for them? And in the old way with the Red Cross, I 100% agree with you. When they had a hard time looking and finding their certs, that's what we used to hold over their head, is that we won't give you your certification until you finish the summer season for us. Whether or not that's legal, I don't know, but that's what we did. Now they just type in their name and they get their certification, and they're good to go, and they can go anywhere else. So I think that's something that is going to have to continue to develop, because I think most of us are going to have to switch to that pay to train to be able to compete with these other entities. It's just becoming harder and harder. And my kind of next set of questions is when do you start your recruitment for the summer season? So I know in Irvine, we used to start recruiting in March, and that was just 6 years ago. Now we're all the way up that we usually advertise the first week of January, and our job recruitment closes before March, just so that we can get out ahead of everybody else. And what happened this year is that we lost a lot of staff during the process and the hiring process and training process, because they found better jobs elsewhere, or they came in for an interview, they accepted the position, and then they got another job at Orange Theory, right, Courtney? Which is what my daughter did to Courtney. So it's happening everywhere. So I guess when do you guys start hiring, or the advertisement process, I should say, recruitment process? Are we?
Hey, Corey,
anybody,
if I can back up.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I can back up a minute there, you guys were talking about how the Red Cross, how they can automatically get their certification now. I think Red Cross actually, within the last couple of years, started offering a program where the certification could be attached to the facility instead of just the person, the individual, so that you could technically say, well, the certification is registered to XYZ, name your facility, and therefore the individual who took the class, they couldn't get the certification until you either relinquished it to them or whatever. So that's something they offer now. I think you have to pay a little bit more to do that type of program with the Red Cross, but there is an option where you can have the certifications all registered to your facility versus being each individual has their own certification.
I say, Adam, I'm going to chime in on that. I'm Amanda from Gwinnett County. That's the program that we have worked with the Red Cross this past year to switch into. So if they get a free training class from us, our certifications are tied to the facility. And if they want their certification, they can then pay to have it released and into their name. So we do have that option. But that program very much is alive and well. You just have to work with your chapter to get that. And for us, there was not an additional fee that I'm aware of, but they did work with us on that program.
Yeah, I know that's something we had discussed prior to our closure here at the Fort Lauderdale Aquatic Center. That was something we were going to actually look into, because we had the same problem where we would do all these trainings, and then our ocean rescue team would come cherry pick all their good lifeguards and hire them to go work on the beach and just give them the additional training. So it became an issue where I'm like, okay, this isn't, we got to switch something up here. So,
right.
Yeah, anyways.
Great. Well, one last thing, and then we'll move on to engaging staff. And I think it just has to do with pay. And I know I saw someone just said that they upped their pay in their area. And, I think that's one thing that aquatics professionals have not been very good at, is advocacy for pay of highly trained staff. And, I use the example often that I started working in aquatics. I got my first job in 1990 and was making $9.10 an hour as a lifeguard. And you look at that now, here we are, 2021, and our starting pay for our staff is exactly minimum wage in this city. So I think that's one thing that we as a group have to figure out how we can do a better job to do that, because as we all know, being a lifeguard used to be, the cool thing to do. You made more money, you got to rescue people, you got to work at a beach, which a lot of us did in the summers and left our pools, but it doesn't have that same feeling anymore. I think we've kind of lost that. So that's definitely something that we're going to have to further discuss as aquatic professionals, I think, moving forward. All right, let's move on to engaging staff. So keeping our teams engaged and interested in performing their tasks is something that we're all struggling with. This age group coming up and current group just definitely has a different vibe and different feeling for what the expectation is and what work is. And I was joking with them earlier that my supervisor came to me earlier this summer and said, at this point, I think they think our schedule is optional. I put them on the schedule and they choose whether or not they want to come that day or not. Or sometimes even if they want to show up on time or just 15 minutes late or a half hour late. We even had one staff this summer that just decided they were done for the day and left early and we couldn't find them. So I know it's happening everywhere. While there are certainly benefits to working with younger staff, like chances to develop, mentor and train, sometimes it's definitely a challenge to keep them performing at a high level. So Gwen, working for a municipality provides additional challenges with engaging staff, obviously, because we don't have the incentive pays, like Courtney was saying, it's hard to get those things built in. And our resources are often very limited as well. What are some of the things you are able to do to recognize your staff and keep them engaged?
So we've been able to kind of try to think outside the box and think of things that are low cost or minimal cost or small cost out of my pocket, not $50, but like $5 instead. So some of the things we do a guard of the week and they get the gold tube. We post on social media. We post it on our bulletin boards around here so they get some recognition. We also do shout outs, and that can be from anybody from a staff member, supervisors, patrons. We read those at our staff meetings, celebrate the win. And if you get nominated for a shout out, you get a prize. So like a piece of candy or an apple or whatever they choose that they want as their prize. And like I said, that comes out of our pocket. We also give like $5 gift cards, those kinds of things, small things, because we can't use city funds for any of those things. We also do like fun flash challenges around like holidays, silly holidays like National Pet Day or French Friday or whatever. And you can take a picture with those, send them in, and we make a collage, show at the end of the year. And they love to see themselves. They love that part of it. So, and then we also do thank you notes, like a lead supervisor or any of our staff will just handwrite a thank you note. Thanks so much for going above and beyond. Like your effort was really noticed. So that helps, just kind of refocus them and reward those. And the biggest thing for us, I think, is just to tell our staff and focus on the big picture. Like they really do provide a service for our community. They're doing something that's above and beyond. It's different than working in fast food. They're really saving lives, and just try to focus them back on that process and to convince them that they really are making a difference in their community. Because what I found with our lifeguards is most of our lifeguards have a big heart. They want to serve. They want to do those things, and they've been called to lifeguard for those reasons. So if you can kind of tap into that, it really helps them to realize their purpose and sometimes show up for work on those days they don't really want to.
Great, thank you. And Deb, Gwen spoke about several recognition ideas to keep her staff engaged. What are some activities you use during staff trainings to keep your staff motivated and focused? You're muted, Deb.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Corey, before I share that, I want to do a little bit of a disclaimer, okay? Even despite some of the things I'm going to tell you about, it always was sort of difficult for me to be like on a Zoom or on a meeting or in a presentation and hear all the great things and wonder, gosh, why don't they ever have anything go wrong? Okay, so even though we're sharing like some things that are great ideas, work for us, sometimes they don't work. And I'm the one that Corey spoke of that I'm not sure here in about 10 minutes that I'm going to have any guards show up. So this could be a really short presentation for me. So please know that we're not experts on, or at least I'm gonna speak for myself. I think I can speak for the rest of them, but we're not experts on any of this. These are things that we have tried. Some of them work, some of them don't. There are some things I've been doing for 20 years that this year absolutely did not work. So just a little disclaimer there. But I'm going to tell you one thing that I did add this year, and it actually came from a session that I did virtually at the AOAP conference this year. And I wish I could think of the speaker's name because I would so give her kudos. But anyway, she talked about an in-service plan that we call it team meetings, and they're held once a week and they're mandatory. which kind of is a joke because what are you going to do when you don't have enough people to work and they don't show up at a team meeting? I mean, you just have to bite the bullet. So if I can give any bit of advice, don't hand out like threats that you can't back up. Like you missed 2 team meetings, you're off the schedule when you don't even have enough people to work today. So that's a little thing there. But anyway, the speaker had some great ideas about planning in service for the entire summer ahead of time. That worked really good for me. And I kind of broke it down into some categories where we did, for instance, instead of when you call a roll, them answering here, we had a question and they knew the question ahead of time. And it might be, what's your favorite place to go on vacation? So when my name was called, instead of saying here, I would answer that it's Destin, Florida. So it kind of got everybody one of those almost icebreaker things. And we learned some great things about each other that we didn't know. We also I manage a day camp, and one of the greatest tools for the kids is to get kindness coins. And they look forward to that kindness coin all week long from their counselor. And on the last day of the week of camp, then they get to go to the treasure chest. And I always tell them that it's a gift almost as nice as a new car. When actually some of the things in our camp treasure chest are McDonald's free gifts. But I really took that concept and thought those kids work really hard for that. I wonder what would happen if we had a lifeguard treasure chest where, if you saw someone doing something great, we've tried beads over the year and those kind of things. But anyway, I found some little cards that said, "You're spectacular," or "You rocked it." We laminated those and then handed them out randomly to anyone that we saw or maybe heard about doing something good. And at the end of the week, they got to shop in the lifeguard treasure chest. And honestly, a lot of things came from Dollar Tree, first aid kits, for the pocket. And most everything was less than $1. I have to tell you that 3 guards almost went to blows over finger punching robots that were so cheesy. But it just kind of kept the morale going. And they got to the point that they wanted to do over the top things just to earn a chance to go to the treasure chest. So we did a lot of, in services, we did a lot of skill-based things. We did some knowledge-based things. And then I always tried to, about every other week, put a level of competition to one of the skills or one of the conditioning things. And we kind of had challenges that, which team would have the fastest time or whatever. It helps. Guess the number of gumballs in the jar and you get the gumball jar. Just tried to put in, an air of fun on serious stuff. Some days it worked, some days it didn't.
Yeah, I think Deb brings up a good point too. Definitely none of us are claiming to be experts. We're just trying to share what some of the items that works. And I think one of the other things that we have to remember too is that what worked this summer sometimes doesn't work next summer either. So we have to keep changing. And I think kind of the name of the game is throw it against the wall and see if it sticks that year. And if it works, and then we try it again. And then sometimes I know I've been super disappointed where I'm like, well, God, they all liked it last summer. And then this summer, no one seems to care at all. So it's definitely a moving target for all of us, I think, to keep people interested.
Corey, one other thing that came to mind that I would say we started about 5 years ago, and we do it for both our rec team or our camp team and our lifeguard team is we send out birthday cards on your birthday, and they're signed by myself and my assistant. You really have to be vigilant about that, because it's really sad when your guard comes in and, you know, they're sad because they didn't get the cherished birthday card. So that was something that, you know, it just keeps a contact all year round. And you get a little bit of kudos too if you send something in the mail to, you know, somebody at home from the parents. We write handwritten thank you notes to everyone that works for us in the summer that go out here in a couple of weeks. And you'd be surprised how many parents are impressed by, you know, what you've, because face it or not, snail mail is kind of becoming obsolete and they really like to get stuff in the mail.
Absolutely. Thanks, Deb. All right, Courtney. So I know you have a large team out there in Mesa. How do you ensure you're reaching all levels of your team and keeping them engaged?
Well, I think it definitely starts with our management team. We have 9 pools, so we have between, usually, I think this summer we had 36 in management. So making sure that they are on board with whatever activities or incentives or games that we're doing. And when we put the management teams together, we definitely try to pair up, you know, some more energetic and active staff with maybe some more reserve staff or staff that don't necessarily always buy into everything, to try and balance out that livelihood. We do weekly games. We have a weekly newsletter that we create that goes out, and staff can submit pictures and funny quotes they hear around the pool from like their swim lesson kids or public kids, and submit them to the newsletter that goes out to all the staff so they can see their pictures in the newsletter. We have a lifeguards only Instagram account, so they can join that, and you can only be in the account in the Instagram group if you're a lifeguard with the city. So that kind of feels like a little special because it's like secret if you're a lifeguard. And then we also we did a TikTok challenge this year that they really enjoyed. So we tried to do things that relate more to them, and I don't necessarily always understand it, but they do. And so it's good that I have younger admin team staff members too, like Joey and Christina, to help me with that. So I think just like making sure your management team are engaged so that they're excited about whatever's happening and they can have that trickle down effect to the rest of the staff. And then also like going out to the pools. I'm in an office, not out of pool. So showing up at the pool and like literally just hanging out with them. It feels like you're not doing your job, but you are actually doing your job because you're getting to know the staff and you're letting them get to know you. And it's a way to kind of engage them without really having to do much.
Great, thank you. And Donita, I know you've had a long summer season, but congrats for being done on Sunday. Are there any small tidbits of advice you have found helpful for your organization?
We are kind of a mid-sized organization. Typically, we have 120 staff that work at the outdoor water park, and then we run an indoor pool as well. Through that, we have usually a management team of about 8 to 10 managers. And there are 2 of us that are full-time, myself and Joe is my counterpart. And so at the beginning of a season, we divide everybody on the team. So that's my cashiers, guest services, lifeguards into 8 or 10 teams, depending on the year as to how many managers I have. So this year it was 8 different teams. And each week we put out a challenge for the team, and the team can figure out how they're going to accomplish that. And then they get points. And at the end of the season, then the team with the most points gets a prize. But so that's kind of like an overall big one that we do. And we try and make them different. Sometimes it may be everyone has to be able to do a rescue in a certain amount of time. We brought in technology and we said, okay, everyone on your team needs to make a video, and this is the skill that you guys are going to perform. So lots of times that was first aid based so that we could include those cashiers and guest services because they're all CPR certified and first aid certified, just like my lifeguards. So we made sure that the challenges at least made sense for everybody on each of the teams. In addition to that, the managers go above and beyond, and bi-monthly, they do what is called staff bonding, and it's completely volunteer based, but they figure out something fun to do outside of the workplace once we close the water park. So water park closes at 7 o'clock each night. By the time they're done cleaning at 7:30, sometimes they would do things that were for free. They would go to one of our parks that's well known for ultimate frisbee, for example, or sand volleyball or things like that, just so that they could create those relationships with each other without being in that work setting. And that's worked really, really well for us. So we always try and make those schedules before we even start the season when we're busy doing all of our training. And that way they're posted so that all staff are always invited, and they know. In some things they choose to do, like the trampoline park, if it's got money attached to it, we made sure that it fell after payday. And then finally, another way that we kind of keep them engaged, and this year it was extremely successful. It was the first year we've been able to do it since I've been here, and I've been here 7 years now. We were able to work with our fire department and have them come out and actually do an in-service side by side with our lifeguards. So we had new management within our fire service. When we pitched the idea to them, they were very excited because there are a lot of rivers and open water around us. And so a lot of them do swift water training, but they also respond to a lot of drownings that are not in guarded facilities. So HOAs and ponds. We're in rural areas, so thinking about huge stock tanks, things like that. So the firefighters were all super excited. So we've got 2 stations in our town, and they brought out all 3 of our trucks. They got to watch our lifeguards make the rescue and see how we perform care. So we actually rescued each other, and then we would transfer to the mannequins. And then from there, our staff got to learn how fire transitions. So I've always told them the difference in CPR training, because I know what our fire department is trained like. But it was really neat to see them start bonding with our first responders. So that we did that just before 4th of July weekend. And the amount of energy that they brought to us and to fire as well, it was really, really great to see. So
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like that might be a nice thing midsummer too, to try and make happen to kind of re-energize everybody.
Yeah.
And I know one thing that COVID has taught our organization is that aquatics in the city of Irvine has always had traditionally one of the largest staffs year round. So we've been able to throw a lot of staff at events and things like that the city is putting on. COVID really heightened that for us. So we had staff that went out and were working meals at senior meals, delivering Meals on Wheels. We had staff that were doing parks patrol. We had staff that were working vaccination sites and clinics and things like that. And those were all things that really re-energized and engaged our staff in what they were doing. And they would come back to the pool very excited. And to this day, it's funny, I have staff that were in aquatics, and now they're working half-time in aquatics and half-time in seniors because they enjoyed serving the senior meals so much that they wanted to make that a part of their daily routine. So just throwing that out there, that's something that definitely has worked too, is when we've had staff that are struggling. And some of them have been with us for 4 or 5 years, and quite frankly, they're just bored. They aren't necessarily the leadership type, so they haven't been able to move up within our organization. But providing them an opportunity to do something else has really helped as well. So let's move into the last subject here. We have about 25 minutes, or I'm sorry, about 15 minutes left, and then I kind of wanted to open up just for general discussion before we break off. But avoiding burnout. As we move through a busy summer season, and I know for most of us, this summer has been unlike any other, dealing with staffing issues and COVID protocols and things like that. Many of us experience burnout and begin to lose focus on our day-to-day tasks. So let's discuss some ways to keep our staff interested throughout the busy summer season and keep them performing at a high level with this as well. So Courtney, what are some ways you avoid burnout as a manager and admin for yourself?
Well, I think getting out of the office is really important, like actually stepping away. Sometimes I have to pull my admin team to actually go out to lunch instead of eat lunch in like our common area or at our desk even if we're not looking at work while we're doing it, we're talking about work or we're in the workspace. So actually going out of the building has helped with that. And then also swimming laps, like going to a pool and swimming laps on our lunch or anytime really when staff are there. Staff like to see that we're like, hey, I promise I'm a lifeguard. I know how to swim. I used to swim. Like they like to see us swimming laps and being out there at their facility, even if it is slow. So that's helped me, I think, just as from an admin standpoint, stuff that I used to do as a lifeguard, going back and doing that again.
Okay. And what's one area of focus that you help your staff with this area?
Well, I mean, for my admin team, forcing them to actually stop working and get out is a good way to do that. But I think Donita talking about the fire thing happening in the middle of the summer, we're so used to trying to do that at the beginning of the summer, or I am used to trying to do that at the beginning of the summer, that maybe having it in the middle is a good way to like re-energize them and avoid that burnout for everybody, from the lifeguards all the way through the managers, which I definitely will look into that for next year.
Thank you. And Deb, I know one of the things we did this summer for the first time ever is the admin team went around and they delivered ice cream to every single facility in the city, to like 600 employees, which was a huge plus. What are some of the extras you do to reward your staff for a job well done and try and enhance their performance?
Well, anyone that knows me knows that Sonic is my love language. And we value everything in the world by how many Sonic drinks you can buy. And the Sonics in our area actually will sell you the little round chips that you get if you wait too long in line for a free drink. They'll sell them to you. And I always buy a couple of 25 rolls or whatever. And we sometimes will, if you've pulled a double or you came in early for someone or whatever, you get a Sonic chip, and it's a really big deal. Towards the middle to the end, when everyone is, like you said, thinking that the schedule is suggested, those that would constantly show up on time at team meetings got to pick the hours, and maybe not for the next week, but the next week on the schedule first. So, that first shift outdoor pool that everybody wants, not the 5:30 in the morning at the indoor, you were able to get that. We had ice cream bar days where I would just buy ice cream bars. I noticed a couple of weeks ago that my guards were wearing these crazy like Hawaiian print shirts that were really big, and they wore them to work, and then they would clean in them and have them on their breaks. Well, at the same time, my husband decided to clean out his closet, and he had about 40, I don't know where they come from, I swear from another wife. But anyway, Hawaiian shirts that he didn't he didn't ever wear, had never worn. So I took him to the pool, and it was like Christmas. So just the little things that you do. We had a bowl that sat on our in our guard room, and it was called a candy smile bowl. And in order to take a piece of candy out of it, you had to give everybody a smile. I just found that the littlest things really had more value than the big monetary things. My agency being very small, and my own household budget being very, very small, we weren't really set up to give anything great big, but those were some of the things that worked for me. Just having, when it gets really hot, having like Powerade or Gatorade mix that they could put in their water jugs. They're rocking that kind of thing.
Great, thanks. And Gwen, I know preparing in advance instead of being reactionary is a key component of avoiding burnout. What are some of the things you focus on when planning for the upcoming summer season?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time with pre-summer training with skills and all those things. We also spend a lot of time planning for what we're going to do as far as fun and those kinds of things. So it's crucial. It takes a lot of work for us, but it's been effective. So this is what's worked for us. We pick a theme every summer. This year was 80s Olympics. Think like neon and Olympics combined. Neon's hot, Olympics is hot. They like those things. So then everything we do for the whole summer, from the front of their staff manual all the way through our end of the summer party, is themed that way. So we have challenges every week in that theme. They're in teams divided up by neon colors. We just work that into everything we do, every staff training. They compete. Our lifeguards love to compete against each other. They're very competitive, and so they compete for points. So each team earns points different ways. Then in the summer, there's a winner. They get to sign the gold rescue ring that we painted gold with spray paint. Nothing expensive. But they love that part. And like Courtney and Donita were saying, our supervisors are the captains of those teams. They lead them. We have had problems in the past where our supervisors kind of got worked up that they weren't getting the points because they're the ones giving points. And so it really is important for us to remind them that it's not about that. It's about them having some power and some leverage to get the lifeguards to do what they want them to do, not about necessarily their team winning. Right. So that's the only cautionary tale I have there. We plan challenges for the week. There's a challenge for the week and then flash challenges for different days. There's a flash challenge and they love those, get them in with a certain time. And then we also do fun like milestone type things. So we kind of mark the days by like dress up for the 4th of July or Shark Week, like wear your shark costume, or, we do try to find different time period things that kind of mark the days. So it seems like it goes a little faster for us.
Great. So Donita, Gwen just kind of talked about creating a culture that is fun, full of energy, and contagious. What is the culture of your aquatics team?
Yeah, we definitely are looking to make sure that they have fun while they're being responsible. But it really boils down to us as all of them, if you talk to them, they say that they come back, especially my returners year after year, because they feel like a family. And so that was really impactful when we got our end of the season evals, and we keep seeing that. So again, just making sure that the family doesn't become divided and have silos. So finding ways to make sure that my guest services and my cashiers are included in our challenges and in having fun with the lifeguards, so that everyone as a cohesive group is really, really important to us. And kind of like I said earlier, we lean on our management staff to really help Joe and I to make sure that we create that. But, some of that of being a family, it's helping to take care of each other. And so what we have found is through the ways that we've created fun with like the staff bonding days and stuff like that, that they create those personal relationships so that they want to help each other. So my best example is I had one of our brand new 15-year-old lifeguards, and her father suddenly passed away 2 weeks before we were closing the facility. And she wanted to work, everyone was there, but everyone knew not to ask too many questions so that she could have a break, because we all need a mental break when we go through something as devastated as a death that just was very sudden. But then, of course, there are things that come up with laying her father to rest. Is she just barely hit send because we use when to work. And so that's how they do messages and things. When she found out, okay, we're doing an autopsy this day, And she wanted to be there for that, you know, or we're doing this when we're going to do the memorial. Our staff were definitely family. They picked up those shifts immediately for her. And so I think just creating that culture of family and just celebrating something, you know, as sad as that can be, but putting it in a celebratory way, as well as the highs. Like every day we have pool meetings, and it's to get our days ready, let them know what groups are coming in. We do little reminders for them so that their minds are actually ready to go when we get on the stands. But we also celebrate highs, you know, so what was your high for today? And we all would celebrate that. And so I would say just doing little things like that, like what Deb said, that don't cost any money, but it makes it personal. They're not just a warm body in a stand when they work with us. Like, we're actually a team, we're actually a family.
I think that's a great reminder. I think we work, you know, even for us, you know, we work and spend more time sometimes with people who we work with than we do with our real families at home, just in the nature of what we do. So certainly a good reminder to take care of each other and create that environment as well. All right, last question, Gwen. So I know surveys are a great way to gauge kind of what's going on within our organization and our staff, and get people sometimes to tell us things that maybe they wouldn't face to face because they don't want to be called out or known that they're complaining about something. How do you integrate surveys as a way to evaluate your operations?
So we send out a survey at the end of the summer. Actually, we send out several surveys, but our most impactful one at the end of the summer is completely anonymous. And we ask a lot of different questions. So we ask about staff recognition. Do they like the way they're recognized? What I can tell you about this generation is they really like to be recognized, some in different ways, but they definitely want to be recognized. We ask about time off. Did they get enough time off, too much time off? Did they want more hours? Those kinds of things. What they liked most about the job, what they liked least about the job, what they felt most prepared about in training, what they feel like they need more training on, and what we could do to help them do their job better. And basically what we found is they'll tell us things in that survey that they'll never tell us face to face. And that really helps us, but it doesn't do any good unless you incorporate it into the next year, because they want buy-in. They want to feel like their voice has been heard. So it's really important to take those ideas and try to make some changes in the coming year, because otherwise you'll stop getting that feedback from them. And I just want to, in closing, just kind of wrap up what everyone said. I agree that our staff need to feel like they're getting more than a paycheck. I've got kids here that drive nicer cars than I do. They have BMWs and amazing cars in the parking lot. They don't need that paycheck. They'll leave a paycheck here for weeks before we had direct deposit. But they want to feel like they are contributing to something, and it's fun and it's rewarding, and their friends are there and they're making friends. It's a lot more than just getting a paycheck for a lot of our staff. So we basically kind of run a summer camp and lifeguards all at the same time. And that's what's been successful for us.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything anyone else wants to add before we kind of close up here? Any suggestions? I know there were a lot of things in the chat, so I appreciate you guys typing those things in, and just know that this is recorded too. So hopefully you can go back and check that stuff out if you didn't see anything. But there were lots of good ideas from volunteering at Ironman and from Gary, you know, using the stickers that Pete DeQuincy has out. So lots of definitely good things. So thank you so much for participating today. If there's no questions, I guess we will wrap up and I'll let you guys go.
Thanks, Corey. I liked this.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Corey.
Thank you guys. All right. Have a great day.